Welcome to the Greater Returns Podcast, where we talk about nonprofit fundraising, analytics, and how to get better every day. Now, let's get started with the show.
Dennis Hoffman here. I'm the host of Greater Returns, a fundraising podcast where I talk with top nonprofit leaders about marketing, direct mail, and analytics. I have Olga Moshinsky Woltman here from LemonSkies. Olga has worked with organizations like Special Olympics, American Heart Association, and the Smithsonian Institution. This episode is brought to you by Engage USA. At Engage USA, we provide expert caging and lockbox services to help nonprofits meet their unique fundraising needs. Our proprietary systems capture, verify, and balance data in real time, allowing us to provide our clients with obsessively accurate data and deposits within 24 hours. State and national charities, advocacy organizations, and political candidates count on Engage USA to help their fundraising campaigns be more successful. So what are you waiting for? Visit engageusa.com or email info@engageusa.com to learn more. Before I introduce today's guest, I want to give a big thank you to Kevin Lee, Bob Rudder, and John Corcoran, who have been very patient with me as I fumbled through my first 3 interviews on this Greater Returns fundraising podcast. And now about Olga Moshinsky Woltman. I'm really excited to be talking with you. After nearly 2 decades working with major American charities like American Heart Association, American Diabetes Association, the Smithsonian Institution, and Special Olympics, Olga founded LemonSkies to channel her passion for advancing social good. LemonSkies focuses on messaging and storytelling and helps nonprofits tell their stories. While it's only 3 years old, LemonSkies has already built a reputation for smart strategy and creative ideas that help good causes. That has been the driving force behind Olga's work in the nonprofit sector. Olga approaches every client and every project through the lens of empathy. What would we do if we were in your shoes making decisions for your organization? Olga is a frequent contributor to the nonprofit industry publications and is currently serving on the board of directors of BRAWS, an organization dedicated to bringing dignity and empowerment to women and girls. Olga, thanks for being here.
Thank you for inviting me.
So tell me about LemonSkies, who you are, what you do, what led you to found your own company?
That's a great question. After spending a long time in nonprofit space, I was just ready to take the leap, and it was partially a professional decision. I wanted to work with causes and that really allow me to unleash my creativity and energy. I get really excited and really curious about new organizations, new issues, new topics. So this was really an opportunity that would allow me that freedom. But it was also a personal decision. I started LemonSkies before the pandemic when teleworking jobs were not as common or as frequent as they are today. And I just wanted to be home when my kids walk home from school. So it was really kind of a combination of the two came together.
Excellent. And what led you to work with nonprofits in general?
You know, some people really kind of set out on a path and they know exactly what they want to do when they grow up. And I was never one of those people. So I came to Washington, D.C. I spent a semester here when I was an undergrad, and I just really liked the city. I liked how accessible it was. I liked the metro rail. So when I moved here right after college graduation, it sort of naturally led me to a job in the nonprofit space. And over the years, that really kind of ingrains in you, and over time really enriches you. And I became really who I am today.
Very cool. I know you specialize in storytelling, but you also specialize in digital fundraising. Tell me, what do you think is going well with that? What's going badly? What do you expect in the future?
Yeah, you know, it's an interesting question. I'm not sure that any trends are just good or just bad. I think some of it is really in the application, and some of the things that I think about probably apply not just in digital space, but just broader in nonprofit fundraising. One of the good things that I'm seeing, social media, I have really felt like in recent years makes our involvement in nonprofit charities, organizations that are close to us, more visible to our friends, our peers, our colleagues. And I don't think that existed before. So it's really sort of on the one hand, there's a little bit of vanity that goes along with it, but in doing so, it really makes involvement more visible and creates almost like a positive sense of FOMO, right? Seeing somebody at a charitable run or a 5K, or maybe it's a fundraiser of some sort, really makes people turn out and engage. So I think we're seeing, and I would say we've been seeing it for a few years now, a shift from institutional support to more of a mission and cause support. And that really, in working with nonprofits that I interact with clients, it really forces you to think differently about how we communicate. It's not about the reputation of your organization that's been around for however many years, but it's about the impact and the work you do. So it really kind of leads you down this path of thinking and communicating differently. I think stewardship and relationship building and authenticity of those relationships, that's another, and again, we've been talking about it probably for about a decade, but it sort of has come from, that's a good best practice, to really, you can't afford not to do that. You really have to have genuine relationships with your constituents and not treat them as ATMs. One perhaps less positive trend I'm seeing, some of the charitable involvement and charitable giving has gotten a little bit too cute. So everything from gamification to challenges that are really fun, but they don't really engage subjects and participants in a deeper level to really understand why it's important or why it matters. It sort of becomes more about being a thing to do rather than why it actually matters. And I think we need to work on kind of deepening that understanding. It's great as a gateway point, but how do we take our participants and our supporters from that entry point to actually really understand why what we do matters? So yeah, I don't know what to expect, but I think what I'm hoping to see, I don't know if you'd agree, is just more transparency in what we do and why we do it, in communicating our mission and what we do, not hiding behind kind of the fancy big words, but really being very, very clear. If it sounds a little confusing, then maybe we're not being transparent enough.
So how do you think large institutions should, I was going to, like the Smithsonian, how do they best transition to that? I mean, an organization that people have in the past donated to because of who they are, and now now people are asking them, no, where's my money going? What is it? What good are you? What is a social good you're doing? How do they make that transition?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a few years since I worked on their mission specifically, but I would say that, we all have memories of visiting, and, whether it's a visit to Air and Space Museum that maybe led you down the path of engineering, or, how does it shape you? How does it transform you? So it's really talking about the impact and not just sort of solely leaning on your reputation. In the past, that was sort of seal of approval, trustworthiness, but it's really kind of just translating what you already do. It's just being clear and upfront about it, and not trying to kind of wrap things in big fancy words, but it's really relying on how it impacts in a positive way your subjects.
It kind of makes sense when we think about the baby boomers are entering donor age, and they had a lot less respect for institutions than the generation before them. And so this change makes a lot of sense. So, I know you and I have communicated before about donor retention and engagement, and what mistakes do you see nonprofits, not anybody we know, of course, but other nonprofits, what mistakes do you see them making, and what can they do better? What can we all do better?
I think, I'm very much a relationship person, and that's what I think donor retention and donor engagement is about. I keep coming back to how do we communicate with our constituents and our supporters. I think the biggest mistake, and this comes as a surprise to no one, it's treating donors like your ATMs and just sort of sending that perfunctory thank you note on Thanksgiving and then hitting them over with 10 fundraising appeals from Giving Tuesday through the end of the year. Well, that doesn't feel very, very good to a donor. So it's really kind of stewardship is the name of the game. And by stewardship, I mean conveying why does my donation matter? What is it that we do that's impactful and important? And not leaving it to sort of those moments when you know you're about to ask them for money, but really threading it throughout. It's really just what would you want to hear as a human? What would make you feel good about giving, and acting accordingly?
How would we like to be treated?
Exactly. Do you send a thank you card? Do you text your friend and let them know thanks for doing something for you? So it's really translating that emotional intelligence, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. And something you talk about that I'm new to is personal branding, and I know you're pretty passionate about that. Why is it important, and how do people get started with that?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting and emerging thing, and it seems like you can't log into LinkedIn. That's what everyone talks about, algorithms and personal branding. But I mean, really, personal branding is nothing more, nothing less than just being your authentic self. It's just really showing up and being present first and foremost, and just being yourself. I think of it as a reflection of reality. It needs to really reflect who you are. And what things get you excited, what things you think about, what is your experience, and being relatable. It's not about always sounding as the most intelligent person in the room. It's about just being true to yourself. And if it sounds a little bit inauthentic in your head and a little bit fake, then probably not something you should put out there. I think for me, it's tuning out the voices in my head and not trying to come up with the recommendation or, case study every time. It's just really a reflection of what I think about and what I want to share with others.
I mean, a little bit vulnerable. Something I've noticed I know that when I post on LinkedIn, that when I talk about my family, or I talk about when I'm more vulnerable, people are much more engaged with me.
Yeah, it's being real. And it's really, when we share our stories, it's really less about us and putting ourselves out there. It's really more a reflection of who people are and how they think about themselves. So if it's something that you can relate to, we've been talking a lot about engaging kids in philanthropic giving, which is sometimes a little bit of an uphill battle. So that's something that many of us think about. And it's not trying to kind of portray some sort of perfection or some sort of image for others to aspire to be.
Sure. I have 3 boys, and we are 1 for 3 with that. Part of their, we call it a family bank, but their allowance goes for charity, and it builds up, and eventually I'll send it to wherever. But one of my sons has gotten into it now, and he actually raised almost $1,000 for the Dave Thomas Foundation for Adoption. And he's adopted, so it was a cause that he was passionate about. How do you get your kids involved in that?
So, and actually, I'm glad you asked that question, Dennis, and I didn't plan it with you. But last year for Giving Tuesday, I gave each one of my kids a certain amount that they could choose a charity they could contribute to. So they were responsible for doing a little bit of research, and then we contributed on the day. So I'm planning to do something similar, and I'm hoping others will join me in that. And it almost doesn't matter if it's $5, if it's $20, if it's $100, whatever the amount, I think really makes a difference. I will say that we're starting to talk about it a little bit earlier, kind of back to our stewardship point with the kids. So it's not just Giving Tuesday. Okay, kids, it's time to contribute. So we're starting those conversations. I think it will take time for them to internalize it beyond to really for it to come from the heart and not sort of something that mom is forcing on them.
Yeah.
But last year, one of them selected a local animal shelter in our area nearby. Because they like animals, and that was the charity that he selected. And the second child gave to the same charity because his older brother did. So that's kind of the social proof for you there. So we'll see how things pan out this year.
Excellent. So who's doing impressive things in our industry? Who do you really think is worth talking about, worth noticing?
Yeah, so one person who's really shaped my thinking and is Shang. So I don't know if you're familiar, but she's been doing a lot of research into how thanking donors impacts their subsequent giving, and it's at a very it's a very scientific kind of level. So she's at the Institute for Sustainable Philanthropy, and kind of the donor centricity theme definitely threads through the work she does. But I mean, honestly, I draw inspiration from any number of things. Like I bought a bar of chocolate and it had a number of nonprofits that were benefiting from it. So I'm going and looking up those organizations. I learn a lot from my clients every day and kind of their situations and their circumstances. So they teach me a lot from peers, from colleagues, from conversations.
You have to look, you said Shang?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You have to look her up. I'm interested in hearing what she is.
I'll send you the link.
Excellent. And you serve on the board of a local organization called BRAWS, and you seem really passionate about it. Tell us about the work you do there.
Oh, this is great. So we have a very tight-knit community. It's sort of that town green and small town feel right in the suburbs of Washington, D.C. So BRAWS started out about 6 years ago now in Holly Seibold's kitchen, and she literally invited a bunch of local women and asked them to bring a box of tampons or pads. She realized that shelters were not getting feminine hygiene products that they needed, and she just saw the need that was very solvable, but very acute in those circumstances. So that's what we do. We provide tampons and also bras, underwear to shelters. We recently helped some of the refugees that are being resettled around this area from Afghanistan. So we also supply these sorts of things to middle schools where some of the girls simply don't have access or cannot afford those things.
That's fantastic. And I know you're involved in other ways in the community. You're running a turkey trot for a fire station, is that right?
Yeah. So turkey trot is a big thing in Vienna, Virginia. We run it every year. And there's an actual person dressed as a turkey. So I'm sponsoring a 5K turkey trot in November. So if you want to come out and run with us, it actually supports local fire station and also one of the local high schools, their marching band, which is kind of a big deal in this area. And it's just a huge community event. It's just really fun. And we'll be running a very hilly 5K. So,
which school?
So this is from Madison High School.
Oh,
it's just down the street in Vienna.
I grew up in Fairfax City, so we played them in football.
I don't think I knew that. So my kids are actually at Marshall, and just nearby, which has IB program as well.
Sure. Well, so let's pretend you're at an awards banquet. It's like the Oscars or the Emmys, and you're being given an award for the amazing things you've done for philanthropy. Who would you thank? Who are the people who really have been mentors to you or been important parts of your life, in your business life?
I love that question. So what category? I assume supporting actress, since as a consultant, that's kind of the role we play. No, I mean, there's so many people that have impacted me knowingly or sometimes unknowingly, just sort of saying the right thing at the right time that just gives you the boost you need in that moment. But there's a few people I would call out by name. I had a professor when I was spending a semester in Washington, D.C., and she was a ruthless editor. It was, truly, truly awful. Like you would get your paper back and it would be just X'd out. And, I don't think I was very fond of her at the time, but I really learned a ton about writing and how to keep things simple and how to structure my argument in the process. So I'm just really grateful for that. Kim Kubine, formerly Adamson Hussey, she's somebody I worked with about a decade and a half ago. And I just learned so much from her about fundraising, but also about problem solving and just really approaching every challenge, not from the perspective the sky is falling, how am I going to do this? But it's really more like, okay, great, how am I going to solve for it? So definitely would have to mention her. And then Joan Wheatley, who was my boss at Special Olympics for a number of years. And, I really learned a lot from her about being donor-centric and talking about impact, and also how to be very strategic and patient in achieving your objectives. So I owe them a depth of gratitude, but I would probably go down the list until you start playing music to bring me off the stage.
Thanks, Olga. I've been talking with Olga Moshinsky Woltman. Olga is the founder of LemonSkies, where she works with nonprofit organizations on communications, fundraising, and storytelling. Olga, how can people get in touch with you to learn more or just to check you out?
Oh, sure. Yeah, connect with me on LinkedIn, Olga Woltman, or you can email me at owoltman@lemon-skies.com. I'd love to hear from you.
Thanks for listening to the Greater Returns podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.